The BC to the SWAC. We cover it all now on 93.7 The Ticket. Here is your host, Austin Oerman.
Welcome to it. One day closer to college basketball season. Cannot get here soon enough if you ask me. That's what we talk on this show, 3 to 4 on Sundays. College hoops, college hoops, college hoops. We'll get some Big Ten. I saved a lot of that for on the block that I do from 2 to 4 with Eric Strickland, Husker Hall of Famer. But I got my pals, the guys that know a lot more than me about other areas of the country. One of them with me here today, Matt Hardesty, up in Wisconsin, covering all things Wisconsin, Marquette, Kentucky as well. Hope to get Landon Wirt back on sometime in the near future to talk Northern Iowa and Oklahoma State. Definitely a lot of Big 12. What's on the docket for today? A lot of good stuff. First of all, secret scrimmages. It's that time of year. Practices are well underway. You've got a handful of secret scrimmages already in the books. Some really interesting results as well as Nebraska got a secret scrimmage in against Utah of all teams. We'll touch on that. Second segment of the show. Does Cal still have it? Does he still have his recruiting chops? He flips another one. Did we write him off too soon last year? And the big chunk of the segment is KenPom. His rankings came out on, I think it was Monday last week, so it just missed our show. Some surprises and disappointments. Who do we think is overrated? Who do we think is underrated? If you have any thoughts on anything we're going over here, let us know. 402-464-5685. That's the Sartor Heyman text line. You can also let us know if you're watching on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, or Allo Channel 951. If you're watching via the stream, let us know. You can drop a comment there, and we'll get to it. We bring in Matt Hardesty. Matt, how you doing? Have a good week?
I did. Good to see you. Good to be back. I've been listening to a lot of college basketball preview podcasts this week, and I'm at the point in the offseason where I think every team's going to be terrible to start the year. Even if they're getting gassed up by the media figureheads, I'm like, well, that's just not true. Like, they've got this hole and this hole. So I'm currently under the belief that almost every team is going to be terrible this year. So
fair enough. Has Kentucky had Big Blue Madness yet?
Yes, they had it 2 weeks ago. So there was all sorts of rumors like Lil Wayne or some other rapper I'd never heard of that's on the younger end was going to make an appearance. And maybe it was Lil Durk, who I know is not on the younger end. He's been around for a while. But there was rumors they were going to make an appearance, but nope. There was a scrimmage. I didn't hear much about it. With Kentucky, usually the one to watch is more the pro day. They have a pro day for NBA scouts. I think Duke does something similar too.
Yeah.
Like right before the season. That way scouts don't show up to every practice throughout the season. It's kind of like, hey, come check them out now. You get to get all the data you want, and then please get out of our lives. So they did that, and it was good to see the team again after, last few months. And then I haven't watched it yet, but last night they had their blue-white scrimmage. Something I really like is that Calipari, starting last year, has been starting to take that game like all over the state. So last year they were in Eastern Kentucky, I think Pikeville, where they had flooding, so they raised money there. And then last night they played at Northern Kentucky's arena. So it was like kind of nice that, fans from all over the state can come watch the team. So
you mentioned charity, and that's something I want to touch on real quick. We kind of forgot about all the fires going on in Hawaii with everything else going on in the news. We've moved past that really quickly, but there's still a lot of scrimmages that are going to happen here in the near future to benefit everything that went on out in Maui. So it'll be Hawaii and St. Mary's. Interesting matchup out there. Curious to see how the Gales look. You have Michigan State and Tennessee playing a charity exhibition to raise money for the Maui wildfires, as well as the Bill Self Bowl. Kansas and Illinois will play one to benefit Maui. And that's different than a secret scrimmage that we're going to be talking about here in just a little bit. Nebraska and Colorado have done their charity exhibitions recently. I think it was for the Red Cross, if I'm not mistaken. Did one in Boulder, did one in Lincoln. So I don't think there's a wrong way to do it. Maybe you can do one for charity every year, but I think it's good to sometimes just make it a normal practice. And then when there is something big, like the flooding in Kentucky, like the fires out in Maui, definitely go ahead and, sprinkle in an actual legitimate charity exhibition with tickets and all that.
Yeah, no, I thought it's cool. Just, especially, peeling back the curtain a little, like Kentucky has a blue-white game. They don't really do secret scrimmages because you can make more when you're a pro. I mean, I guess Duke does them, which I like that teams do them, but it's like usually when you're like Kentucky or or Kansas, it's like you can sell tickets to 2 exhibition games and make more money doing that. And it's, it's worth the cost of putting those on. But it's like the blue-white game, usually in Lexington, it didn't get that big of a crowd. So to take it to smaller arenas around the state, it gives the team a chance to, realize pretty early on, especially with all these freshmen from all over the country, you realize, oh, you're representing a whole state, kind of like Nebraska football.
Or
and then it's also, fans that can't afford or don't have the time to get to Lexington have a chance to watch the team in a pretty relaxed environment. So I think it's pretty cool.
Let's dive into some of those secret scrimmages. I don't know who Duke's opponent will be this year. It was Villanova last year or a couple years ago, which was an oddly fascinating matchup to keep behind closed doors, but I get why they did it. Let's get into Nebraska-Utah first. I didn't even realize this was going on. Shows you how well or not well connected I am. I didn't realize the Utes were in town. Fascinating matchup because there's a couple Pac-12 teams I'll talk about in my KenPom list next segment. Utah's in the same neighborhood as Nebraska. Nebraska is ranked 58th by KenPom in the preseason. Utah up at number 52. The Utes are there. They're always a pain, kind of always in that fringe NIT hosting conversation. Every so often they'll pop up on the bubble. I remember Duke beating Utah on their way to the 2015 national championship game. Jakob Pertl, one of the Wright brothers, was on that team. But yeah, Nebraska scrimmage Utah. We haven't had any information on how that's gone, but hey, good for those two teams getting together.
Yeah, and I love that. One, there was no build up to this. I mean, it was cool that, the Colorado series got some hype, and it was fun to actually, I think you could stream both of those games.
Good.
Like, didn't Nebraska, the Bryce McGowan's year, just destroy Colorado?
Blasted the Bucks.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it was fun to build up hype, but this year it's like, I think Utah's a really good team. It's just nice that it's, these games don't really matter because you don't know exactly what the purpose is, what coaches and teams are looking to get out of them. So it's kind of like, when NFL teams or scrimmage each other before a preseason game. That's the way I look at it, where it's like a lot of times the scrimmages, you see a lot more than you do in a preseason game. So it makes sense though. Like Craig Smith's out there coaching Utah. I think he's in year 2 now. Maybe it's year 3. I'm not sure, but I think they're a very underrated team in, oh my gosh. So yeah, this is his 3rd year there, which is crazy. But I think they're kind of an under the radar Pac-12 team. Smith's had success everywhere he's gone, especially by like year 3 or year 4. And Pac-12 is going to be loaded in its final year. But if he keeps them, they're kind of a team we haven't really talked about in the whole realignment thing where, he's about to go into just an absolutely loaded conference. So kind of excited to see, can they keep building and become a competitive team in the new Big 12 next year? But it seems like another good team for them to, match up against Nebraska, 2 older-ish teams that probably want to play similar, focus on defense and, scrappy hustle plays. And I like that we don't know the result because it's like, I think it's good that the 2 teams practiced against each other, but I don't think the result really matters all that much.
It doesn't, but the results matter in some other games that we're going to talk about, some other secret scrimmages, because there's some mighty fine eyebrow-raising results. The first one that I'm going to talk about is Colorado beating Texas, one of those other sneaky, kind of off-the-radar teams that's getting a lot of that watch out for them sort of love, especially recently. They beat Texas 87-78. Texas was without Caden Shedrick. He was the transfer big from Virginia that was one of the 2 guys I thought Duke should target. They don't end up landing him. Texas being ranked anywhere from, top 15 to top 25 in a lot of places in the preseason. KenPom has them, up there pretty well. I don't know exactly what to make of Texas, but this is not slowing down that Buffalo hype wagon. Yeah, no, and I think Colorado basketball is going to have a better season, like postseason results wise and just win percentage wise than Colorado football. They've got a proven coach. They've got really talented freshmen coming in, and then they added Eddie Lampkin and I think a couple other transfers. I just really hope that the fan support shows up for them. It doesn't have to be at the level of Colorado football, but I hope that they get the same, at least some buzz and hype, because that could be a really fun team. And playing basketball in that altitude, like if you've got the team to handle it, it's
big advantage that shows up a lot more in basketball than it does in football. So I'm kind of surprised they won, but also, you said it yourself with Texas. Like, I have no idea what to expect out of them, especially with, keeping Rodney Terry. They lose Ron Holland, one of the top recruits. He decides to go to the G League instead. And they still got an interesting team. Again, don't know what they were trying to get out of this. They didn't have Keaton Shedrick. So still, it's a big confidence boost for a Colorado team that has a lot of new pieces. So that's worth noting for sure.
Eddie Lampkin fell off people's radars far too quickly. That's a guy that we needed to talk more about as a college basketball populace. Sticking in the state of Colorado, my goodness, Rams.
Yeah.
They obliterate Minnesota. Year 2 of Ben Johnson. Looking like it's going to go the same way as year 1 if the scrimmage is any indication. What was it? 87-49 Colorado State. A fine Colorado State team, not as good as it was last year, a couple of years ago with David Roddy and that bunch. But man, Minnesota loses Jamison Battle. That's a big one. He's at Ohio State now. It's a long road ahead for the Gophers.
I did not realize Jamison Battle ended up at Ohio State. That changes how I look at Ohio State, honestly. But yeah, there's some interesting blood there with, I believe Nico Medved is a Minnesota alum. So he might have been out for, hey, let's just blow the doors off these guys. And, maybe if Minnesota's athletic department, which I doubt they were there on the same day.
He was born in Minneapolis.
Oh, born in Minneapolis. I doubt that any of the athletic department, like the AD or any of that, were there for something like that, especially on the same day as Minnesota, Iowa for football. Although maybe you'd rather, if you're a Minnesota person, you'd rather watch a basketball game that has no meaning instead of Iowa's offense and Minnesota's offense for that respect. But Colorado got my attention, especially, they lost one of their top players last year, John Tanji. I know his last name's Tanji. I'm terrible with names. But he decides to go to Missouri, if I remember correctly. He was another one of those top transfers that got off the board really early and was kind of forgotten about, sort of like Eddie Lampkin. So, they have my attention in what's going to probably be another loaded year of the Mountain West. So, Minnesota, I don't know if they were holding players out or what their deal was, but it looks like for the picks, at the bottom of the Big Ten by the media are probably founded in some truths.
Carolina, quote unquote, dominates Florida Atlantic. That's a fascinating matchup between one of the bluest of blue bloods and the surprise team from last year. No Elijah Martin, though, for the Owls. We'll talk more about them in the KenPom section as well. Florida beat Miami. I don't like that for you. I love that for me.
I'm for Florida. Florida's another team that I just have no idea what to expect. They're getting a little bit of buzz, but they've added so many mid-major transfers, and it feels like they're not getting some of those transfers from like high major schools. It seems like they're relying almost exclusively on mid-major transfers in Todd Golden's second year. They were really just a meth team last year, so they kind of need to get some sort of momentum. But that was kind of surprising. But again, I'm kind of one of those teams that I'm really surprised to hear so much buzz about in the preseason is Miami. Like, Miami's getting like top 15 talk, and they lost some pretty big pieces from last year. And it's like, they have a couple older players, but losing Nigel Pack's a pretty tough break.
Pack is back. They lose Wong and they lose Brandon Miller.
I always get Nigel Pack and Isaiah Wong confused, honestly, because they have kind of similar playing styles.
Yeah.
So they're a team I'm a little skeptical on, honestly.
Pack scored 27, was 4 of 7 from 3. Wooga Poplar, kind of one of those breakout, trendy all ACC picks. 20 points, 4 of 6 from 3. Norchat Omir, 16.7 boards. But for Florida, Riley Kugel, near double-double, 20 points, 9 boards. Tyrese Samuel went for 19 and 6. And Walter Clayton, the name I hadn't heard in a long time, 15 points and 9 assists for the young fella.
Wow, yeah, I forgot about him too, honestly. Where was he last?
I want to say Iona, but I don't think that's correct.
Oh yeah, I do remember hearing that they got a big transfer from Iona. Yep, he was.
Yeah, that's what
I think they do have pretty big expectations for for him kind of running the show this year.
In the SEC as well, old SEC beats new SEC. Tulane over LSU. No idea what to make of the fighting Kevin Crosses down at Tulane or LSU for that matter, with McMahon in year 2 now for him?
Yeah, LSU is another team that I think is kind of getting a little bit slept on in the preseason. They had a good start last year, beating up on a really bad non-conference schedule after basically their entire team transferred out after Will Wade got fired.
Right.
So, but I mean, if you watched an LSU game, which I hope you didn't have to, but they basically took almost a Florida State-esque approach. They didn't have like the 7-footer or 7'3" guy that Florida State has usually, but they just get super athletic guys. It was like a football team playing basketball against them, where it's like those guys don't skip any meals. And they played very physical. I know they made some more additions in the portal as well, but I think they're a team that also could, finish a little higher than expected in the preseason. And Tulane's just always one of those teams that I want to be better than they are. Like, I feel like the resources they have, playing down in New Orleans, it's awesome to see their football program finally being good. They're in a decent conference for basketball too. Like, I'd like to see them, rise to the top of the AAC, which got a little easier after some of the changes over the offseason.
And it'll get even easier once UConn is gone. I don't know why I threw UConn in that conversation. I still think of them as an American member, even though they're gone.
Understandable.
Couple other ones to note. Georgia over North Carolina State. No DJ Burns for North Carolina State. And Houston over Ole Miss by 4. Again, secret scrimmage preseason, whatever. That is much better than I would expect Ole Miss to play Houston.
I mean, I think Ole Miss got a lot of benefit of the doubt over the offseason for, it's Chris Beard's first year. But, I mean, they were a tournament team a couple years ago, if I remember correctly. They're always they're just a scrappy team in the SEC that, I mean, their floor under Kermit Davis was, they'd win 7 games in the SEC. They weren't ever a threat to really compete, but they'd win a lot of games. They had some solid players, and they kept one of their big players. They added just one of the tallest players in the country in Jermarian Sharp from Western Kentucky.
Right.
And they had another couple of big-time transfers come in. So they'll be scrappy under Chris Beard in year 1. But that also seems like when we're, maybe Houston was holding guys out or just, messing around with some stuff that, seeing what might work for some of those Big 12 games, which is also another, old SEC versus new SEC matchup.
Right. And Houston's also not huge. So I could see someone
Houston's not new SEC.
They were SWC. They were Southwest.
Yeah. I was thinking, I don't know, Chris Beard, I was thinking Texas for a second.
Yeah.
There.
Makes sense. That's it for our look at the secret scrimmages. As we find out about more, we will keep you posted on them here on the Corner 3. When we get back there, we're taking a look at KenPom. Doesn't officially factor into the net or anything like that, but he is the guru to end all gurus. Sorry, Joey Brackets. KenPom is our guy. We're going to go over his preseason rankings. What does KenPom make of some of these teams? We'll give you some surprises, maybe some potential disappointments to watch out for. We'll do that next year on the Corner 3.
You're listening to the Corner 3 on 93.7 The Ticket. More college basketball analysis after this timeout.
You don't think about your roof very often, but you should never take it for granted. Roofing Service Company takes every measure to provide you with the highest quality roofing solution. Whether it's a new roof installation, roof repair, or a re-roofing project, their overall goal is to provide you with a pleasant experience and a long-lasting roof. If you have a need for siding or gutters, they're your place too. Visit roofingservicecompany.com for more info today.
Sunday morning. It's quiet, not in a weird, too quiet way. Calm, peaceful, tranquil. You pour yourself that cup of coffee. You slice yourself a hearty chunk of one of Beatrice Bakery's breakfast breads. Now, maybe you're an apple streusel guy. Nothing wrong with that. I can respect that. Personally, I'm a turtle nut man. Something about those pecans. But the real ones know, don't sleep on that date nut bread. Sweet, but not too sweet. Nutty, not overly. The perfect morning treat. Beatrice Bakery. Online at beatricebakery.com. Welcome to our world of yum.
Introducing the Planet Fitness Guide to getting that post-workout glow. Step 1, what's your why? More epic energy? Better sleep? Blow off steam? Step 2, Join Planet Fitness for just $10 a month and get moving. Go cardio crazy in our clean and spacious clubs, or get down with some dumbbells and strength equipment. Step 3, bask in that post-workout glow. Join Planet Fitness today for just $10 a month. It's glow time. See club for details.
Fall is officially here, which means it's the perfect time to get outdoors and stay moving. If you're someone who enjoys going on walks in fall weather, but you notice heel pain in your foot when you wake up, it could be a sign of plantar fasciitis. A visit to Fleet Feet Lincoln can help you find the shoes and inserts you need to avoid that pain. Their Fit ID machine takes a 3D image of your feet and picks the shoes that work best for you. Visit Fleet Feet Lincoln, located off of 70th and Pioneers Boulevard, so you can stay moving.
College football in Lincoln, America. The time has come. Start your game day off right with the A1 Automotive Ticket Tailgate pregame show. Join the ticket crew as they bring you all the coverage you need to get you ready for the action. It's the A1 Automotive Ticket Tailgate pregame show, powered by Sunbelt Rentals. Ben Bleicher with Professional Realty Group of BHHS Ambassador, Select Plumbing, Jimmy John's, Lincoln Wall-to-Wall Wine and Spirits, Fleet Feet, Yours Cheese Spread on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Victor deployed for the first time to Afghanistan in 2003. At 4 a.m, my phone rang. They said, "I regret to inform you that your husband was wounded in action." Victor sustained a moderate traumatic brain injury. I was doing school full-time, and I was also then caring for Victor. One of the most important elements of caregiving is taking care of yourself. I just didn't want to forget that I also had goals and that I also had a life. What I did is I challenged Victor to meet me halfway. There are almost 6 million military and veteran caregivers across the nation. We have our own journey, and we can fulfill that journey at the same time that we are helping our loved one.
Visit aarp.org/caregiving for a free military veterans guide to navigate your caregiving journey and better care for your loved one and yourself. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
As an 18-year-old, I let my mistakes kind of take over my life. I was 0.5 credits away from completing high school, and I didn't do it.
10 years later, at age 28, Jackie finished her high school diploma.
When I found out that I was pregnant, I know that I had to do something for myself if I wanted to make her a better person and provide a better life for her. My family never stopped pushing for me to be better because they knew what I could become and who I could become as a person. My support team is amazing. The educational director, my sister, and even my 7-year-old daughter has just been more than the support that I could ask for. I've been given an opportunity, and I'm just thankful for it.
No one gets a diploma alone. If you're thinking of finishing your high school diploma, you have help. Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org. That's finishyourdiploma.org. Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
How was your drive to school?
Let me tell you, I had to get my iced coffee first. I just can't seem to put it down. My favorite rapper just announced a tour. My phone was buzzing like crazy. I'm so excited. I had to text all my friends right then to talk about it. Then someone started calling me and...
Let's try that again.
I turned my phone off right away. I never drive distracted.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org. A message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, and the Ad Council.
Back to the quarter three on 93.7 The Ticket. Here is your host, Austin Oerman.
Diving into KenPom, a preseason ritual tradition of sorts for any self-respecting college basketball fan. Don't necessarily take KenPom as gospel, right? Everyone's wrong. He is merely a man, but he's pretty good at what he does. We love his projections, and if nothing else, looking at these in the preseason gives you, number one, a good gauge for these teams, better than I think an AP poll, which you might have to compare some of these teams' rankings in KenPom to the AP poll as we go. But also just to look back on, what did KenPom know that we didn't? What did the computer, did the formulas get wrong that the eye test saw and passed with flying colors? I'm Austin Oerman. Matt Hardesty joins me. Matt, I'm going to give you my surprises, teams that were higher ranked than I thought they were going to be, and I'll let you pick the one you want to jump off on first here. I've got one from the Big 12, two from the Pac-12, and one from the Big 10. I'll start with the Big 10, I guess. Michigan Michigan was ranked higher in KenPom than I thought they would have been. They're all the way up at number 44. Not in love with the roster. Really not loving the vibes. Juwan Howard still recovering from his heart procedure. They lost a lot of key pieces. This is a Michigan team that I think is going to have to fight to stay out of the Wednesday play-in in the Big Ten tournament. And yet KenPom has them ranked all the way up at number 44.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that one too. I missed that, honestly. That's a good catch. That, yeah, I have my qualms with, preseason rankings on efficiency metrics, especially in the transfer portal era. But I know a lot of it's weighted on, head coaching success in previous years. And Juwan Howard, last year was really bad. But the years before that, a Sweet 16 and an Elite 8. So that probably has a lot to do with it. But I'd agree that they're probably gonna slip back. And honestly, a lot of these Big Ten rankings are kind of higher than I expected for early in the year.
I'm with you. I'll give you my Pac-12 teams next. The first one is Oregon. Talk about bad vibes. There was a lot going on with that team in the NIT last year. They dealt with a lot of injuries. I get it, but Dana Altman was calling fans out, for not showing up to the NIT game. Just a very blah, mediocre Oregon team that wasn't very fun to watch. Not your, Jordan Bell, Elite 8 Final Four caliber team, but that's not really the expectation. Oregon should be a second weekend team given the talent, and I think Dana Altman's a really good coach. The vibes were off. I'm not really sold on Oregon at all, and they're all the way up at number 41. Again, it's kind of in that Michigan range. Dana's got to prove it this year. Sounds like they're getting restless. I don't think they should be, but I'm a little worried the vibes might not be able to switch with all the JUCO guys being brought in.
Yeah, but honestly, I'm going to jump off of that and say, look one spot below. And how did Stanford get to 42? They were, they finished last year 84th, lost their best player, Harrison Ingram, to North Carolina. What happened there? What are they doing to trick computers and have them be that high? I think, especially, and then you put Arizona State at 81. The Pac-12 is one where there's a lot of head scratchers in there where I think there's going to be a lot of changes from beginning of the year to end.
Jared Haas has won 19 games twice, if you count the 20 wins. 120-win season, 119-win season at Stanford. They've never been terrible. They've never bottomed out. But 14-17, 19-16, 15-16, 20-12, 14-13, 16-16, 14-19. Plus losing their best player, plus playing in a conference with Arizona, UCLA, USC, teams of that nature. I just don't see that with Stanford. I'd be happy if the, basketball playing computer nerds were able to trick KenPom's system, get in there and rank themselves higher than I thought they should be. More power to them. I didn't see that one coming. My final team then, Iowa State. Big shouts TJ Otzelberger. I forgot they finished 5th in the Big 12 last year. I thought they were a little lower in the pecking order. Granted, the Big 12 is just kind of a jumbled mess every year with how often those teams beat up on each other and steal games off each other. But what Otzelberger did year one, taking over the Steve Prohm disaster in that final year, getting him to the NCAA tournament, they flamed out like a, flaming pile of poop in the first round against Pitt last year. So that left a sour taste in my mouth. But man, they get Omaha Billieu. Am I talking myself into a, top 4, top 3 finish in the Big 12 for Iowa State? Number 31 in KenPom? I might just be.
Yeah, I would certainly say they're a little underrated here, but 31's, I think, a good place to gauge a team where it's like, how are things gonna gel? Because it was a bizarre year with, the whole Caleb Grill saga too last year. And then that was one of the more ugly NCAA tournament games in recent years, that Pitt Iowa State game where, the rims were pretty much broken before it, and there were massive delays. So I think they'll eventually finish higher than, TCU and K-State. But the Big 12, I'm going to look further down on some of the things and stick up for Landon a little bit here, that I'm kind of shocked that Oklahoma State's projected to finish, 13th in this conference this year, after being a lot better than that last year. I think they were 8th. I think, especially with the pieces they brought in, both recruiting and in the portal, that they could end up, at least above like Oklahoma, Cincinnati, and West Virginia. I was shocked to see Oklahoma at 48 there. Like
I would
maybe
even take them above Tech.
Yeah, Tech, and no clue what to expect out of BYU either.
Same.
Like I looking at this and just looking at what all those teams around them, it does make me talk myself into Oklahoma State a little more of like, yeah, they've got the size. I mean, I don't know where they're going to get all the offense from yet completely, but I think they've got enough size and certainly enough defense where they're going to be a little higher. And I mean, if you break it down, I think preseason they're projected to have, a pretty rough offense, number 97 in adjusted offensive efficiency. But so that probably explains why they're that low, but I think they're eventually going to be a lot higher. But it's also just a shock of, we watched Texas Tech last year and Oklahoma was pretty bad too. Like, how are those teams preseason top 50 teams?
Is Moser a better coach than Boynton? I'm not sure. He did some really good stuff at Loyola. Boynton, I would say, is the better recruiter, but I think those guys are equal. I wouldn't give Oklahoma a coaching advantage necessarily. McCasland did his thing at North Texas. I think that defense fits what Beard and Mark Adams continued at Texas Tech, but he's adjusting up a level. He's got to bring plenty of pieces in. I mean, losing McCullough before last year for Texas Tech, if he was still around on this team, maybe, but maybe it's just not knowing the pieces. But I do think Tech's overrated. West Virginia has been in a mountain of trouble, no pun intended, with Bob Huggins and the departures and non-departures and then redepartures and everything going on out in Morgantown. For as meh as Boynton has been, as we've heard from Landon, I mean, he's had some bright spots, brighter than I think West Virginia and Texas Tech have had in the last couple of years. And I just trust that program as being slightly more stable than the others right now.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And honestly, I think West Virginia could finish a lot higher too, because they still kept a lot of those talented transfers, and they could really rally around an interim coach, Rodney Terry style with Josh Eilert. But it's still a tough situation. So I get why they're projected that low, but I don't know. I think if football has taught us anything this year, it's tough to adjust up to these new conferences if you're a BYU or Cincinnati, and especially UCF. So maybe they're going to have, it's going to be similar in college basketball. I'm not sure, but I think things are a little wonky there in the Big 12 for preseason projections.
Any other surprises on your list?
Oh, I've got a bunch.
Let's go through them. Here we go.
Big 10. I think there's a lot of teams that are maybe a little overranked. I was kind of shocked to see Illinois at 19.
Me too.
Yeah, that was one. Wisconsin at 20, for a team that missed the NCAA tournament. We talked about them a few weeks ago. I think they have, potential to potentially win. I don't know, potential to potentially win the Big 10 this year, but preseason number 20, and then more shockingly, KenPom thinks that offense is 31st in efficiency. Like, haven't come close to that under Greg Gard in previous years, so that's shocking. A few pleasant. Alabama's another one where I think Alabama at 10 is highly overrated for everything they lost and the lack of talent that they brought in. Grant Nelson and Latrell Wrightsell and Aaron Estrada are getting, especially Estrada's been getting, rave reviews this offseason, but they don't have any of those like surefire NBA guys that they've had on their great teams. And also, Nate Oates lost all of his assistant coaching staff last year. They all got head coaching jobs, all three of them. So he's got a whole new staff, a whole new set of players. You lose Javon Quinterly pretty late in the offseason, and they've got the piece. Like, I think Estrada's a fine replacement, but they don't have that lottery pick that when Alabama's good and a top 10 team in the past, it's been behind like a Josh Primo or a Brandon Miller. I don't think they have that this year. They're a fine team, but like even 2 years ago when they had JD Davison, they were like barely a top 10 in the SEC team, and then they flamed out as a 6th seed in the tournament. So I think at 10, that's That's very high, especially putting them ahead of both, Marquette, Creighton, and Michigan State. Just bizarre. But on the flip side, I'm glad Auburn's getting some love at 15 because I think, they do actually, I forget the name of their Aiden Holloway, I think is his name. They got one of the better recruits that's not going to Kentucky in the SEC. So, and then they bring back, Johnny Broome and a lot of other pieces from last year. They had a really bad year after, that breakthrough year in 2021. Yeah, 2021. The last few years have just blurred together. But I think they actually, I think Auburn's got a much higher chance of winning the SEC than, say, an Arkansas or Alabama.
Arkansas at 14, one spot ahead of Auburn. I mean, at least flip those two, but I think Arkansas is in a similar boat to Alabama.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, their win over Kansas really erased one of the biggest disappointments last year in that you had Nick Smith and Anthony Black last year, and you still, I think they finished 9th or 10th in the SEC. So they got a little bit of a favorable matchup with Illinois in the first round, and then, you get to face Kansas without Bill Self. I don't know if that made much of a difference, but I think you got to face a Kansas team with DeJuan Harris as their point guard is more the point I want to make, where you had a huge mismatch at the most important position in college basketball. And then they just get absolutely blasted by UConn, which, if UConn had gone and lost to Gonzaga in the Elite Eight, maybe that gets a little more criticism. But, they bring back a lot of players, and they added some talented guys too. And Bay Fall could be good from a recruiting standpoint, but I don't think they're a top 25 team yet, especially early. And, I think they're down in battle for Atlantis, which eventually we're going to talk about the MTE events, but, there's some really fun coach. I believe Battle for Atlantis has like Jawan Howard, Penny Hardaway, and Eric Musselman all on the same side of the bracket. And then, Landon and Northern Iowa are also down there. Yeah. So it's I don't think they're going to be a top 20 team early on. And I'm kind of shocked that they were put ahead of Kentucky at 18.
That part. And that's where I want to get into one of my disappointments in the KenPom, or teams that, if they cared, I think would be disappointed, teams I expected to be ranked higher. Texas A&M down at number 24. Being top 25 is what it is, but just as well, if not better than I do, that A&M's getting a lot of preseason dark horse win the SEC love. They have the
dark horse.
They
got picked by the media to win the SEC,
which is crazy. Wade Taylor being picked as the SEC Player of the Year, and KenPom has them 24th. This is one I'm fascinated to see if the numbers are right or if the media's eye test is right at the end of the year.
I want to just get into this now. I could have made a whole 20-minute segment about it, but I've been so worked up here. This is probably what bugs me the most about some of the preseason talk, is just, especially around the SEC, and that there is way too much credence to returning good players over bringing in top talent. So the fact that Texas A&M, I think they are going to be a good team, but really at no point under Buzz Williams before have they been a top 25 team. And keep in mind, I picked Texas A&M to go to the Final Four last year in my bracket.
You did.
That was a big mistake by me, and one that I made that decision in February that no matter what, I was putting Texas A&M into, I was like, that's a dark horse Final Four team. They've got that, there's always the random SEC team that, shocks everyone and goes to the Final Four. I didn't take into account that Penn State was playing unreal basketball at that time and was just a terrible first round matchup that really destroyed Texas A&M. And that Texas A&M last year, they did a great job of beating every team they were supposed to beat in the SEC, but they lost to Kentucky. They lost to Alabama, I think 2 or 3 times. They lost to, I think they only beat one of the, top 3 or 4 teams, and they were a bubble team for most of the conference season before what they end up at 7 or 10 seed. I forget which one they were.
They were the 7. Penn State was the 10.
Yeah, and part of that was because they made that big run in the SEC tournament to the SEC title game. So maybe they'll win the SEC, but I don't know. Buzz Williams has also, he's had some really good teams and teams that make, runs to Sweet 16, Elite 8, but he's never had like, the best team in the conference, whether it be the Big East or the ACC or now here. He's always just had a really good team that's competitive, but he's never gotten, the top talent. And at the end of the day, in the SEC, as much as you look at, they've got all these experienced players, it's the teams with, the NBA lottery picks that have been winning this conference. When Jabari Smith was at Auburn won the SEC. When Brandon Miller was at Alabama won the SEC. When Kentucky had Tyrese Maxey and Malik Monk and all those other players, they won the SEC. Since, Tennessee too, when they had Kennedy Chandler, they won a share of the SEC 2 years ago and won the SEC tournament. When you have the top recruits, you win that conference and you have a really good year. And this year, Kentucky's got 3 top 10 recruits, and the rest of the SEC had really down recruiting. They didn't get the same blue chips. The equation would have been different if Ron Holland had chose Arkansas like many expected instead of the G League. But the fact that he didn't flip his commitment to Arkansas, the fact that Alabama doesn't have like a big time recruit coming in, that's why I think Kentucky and Auburn are going to be the top 2 teams in this conference, because they're the ones that have the best talent. And it's just like football, except for Texas A&M, who does have the best recruiting classes. It's usually the teams with the best talent that end up winning that. And it seems like we're just ignoring that for we bring back all these players. It's like all those players lost a lot last year.
That part.
And same with, and I'm just going to throw this in there too, Tennessee. Tennessee was good last year. And, they had a really impressive win over a red-hot Duke team in the tournament. But at the same time, they got swept by Kentucky, and neither of those games were particularly close. So why exactly are they going to be a top 10 team, especially when the health of their starting point guard is very much up in the air after a really bad injury in the final week of the season?
Yeah, number 8 at KenPom, I'm not buying that. The number 2 defense, I can see. Yeah. But even saying that Tennessee is going to have a top 35 offense like they're projected to by KenPom, I'm not necessarily buying. A couple more teams I want to throw out to you. Indiana, I expected to be ranked higher. They're all the way down at number 49. They're in the news today with Mackenzie Mbako getting arrested on a couple misdemeanors. So if that affects their season, I see that a little bit more. But I like Mbako. I like other pieces they have back. I get it. Trace Jackson-Davis was the heart and soul of that team. Jalen Hood-Schifino had some really good moments. I like Indiana more than I do Michigan, but they're rated behind him in KenPom. Miami, number 45. Again, this is a team that in a meh ACC that'll probably get 4, 5, maybe 6 bids is being picked by some to win the league, but really in that, second, third, fourth kind of range. To be ranked number 45, like Miller and Wong were good. I think they bring back a lot more, and I think KenPom's sleeping on the fact that they play a little bit of a different style with all their guards, a lot of 4-round-1. Omer can pop out a little bit. And my final KenPom disappointment, maybe the biggest eye test versus analytics case of the year, will be Florida Atlantic. They got some preseason top 5 love, which is ridiculous, preseason top 10 team, but number 37 down at KenPom. Maybe that's a, testament to the conference they play in. Maybe it goes to, they didn't really add a whole lot of, appreciable talent, but to your point on A&M, they bring everybody back. They only lose 1 rotation player from their Final Four team last year. The Owls will be good. They can be a second weekend team. I just thought with all the hype they were getting, even the computers would have loved them more than it appears they do.
I think they might be a victim too of, I don't know how much of this is like projected on how they match up in their games, but it's really, I can't imagine how hard it's got to be to try to project, how a team's going to do moving from Conference USA up to the American Athletic. So I don't know how much that has to do with it, but Miami, I do think Miami's closer to their KenPom rating than their AP ranking. So, but also I do think their KenPom rating is very low. But then again, I guess Florida did just beat them in a secret scrimmage. Not that that matters or not. My final piece is to, just take a look at, number 1, Nebraska at 58 is something way higher than they've really ever been in KenPom since Fred Hoiberg took over. So he must really love the pieces they've got and just the style they play, because that was kind of surprising. I'm almost more shocked that Georgia and Seton Hall are ahead of them and that Missouri's that low, because Missouri's another team that's getting like SEC top 5 talk, and they're down there. But I've got my eye on, I think St. John's, it was hard for computers to predict them. I think they'll probably, with Rick Pitino, they'll probably finish higher than, they'll probably cut that ranking in half by March. They'll probably be a fringe top 30 KenPom team. But I also just wanted to point out a couple really bad teams.
Do it, yes.
Before we move off of KenPom. Number one, very surprised. I mean, I know they're kind of a consensus, number 15 pick in the ACC, but Notre Dame at 165 with, Micah Shrewsbury there. I guess I don't know what they've even brought in, but he seems like a good enough coach where maybe they'll be better than that, but also kind of shows that he's really got his work cut out for them after things fizzled out badly under Mike Bray the last few years. And then the other one is Georgetown at 159 with Ed Cooley. That's another one where I'm sure that's a lot to do with how bad Georgetown's been in recent years. But I mean, I forget who they just beat in a secret scrimmage, but they've gotten a little bit more hype going into the season. So kind of surprised that they're both that low. And then I just wanted to go all the way down to the bottom into the, the sickos region of KenPom here.
Yes.
Where I haven't looked at, how many newcomers we have into Division I this year, but the one that that catches my eye is Lemoyne. They're a new team. Their nickname is the Dolphins, and they're located in Syracuse, New York. So,
hey,
how is the team in Syracuse nicknamed the Dolphins? But I just wanted to point out that this brand new team to D1, where usually those teams are at the bottom of KenPom, they're still one spot ahead of Mississippi Valley State. So shout out the Delta Devils for, even below the brand new D2 teams, they are considered worse than.
That would never happen to Jerry Rice. He would never allow it. Too late now. That's a great look at KenPom. We'll step aside, take our final break of the show. Coach Cal still got it. He flips another one. We'll do that to wrap up the corners.
Austin, can I add one more in real quick that I just saw?
37 the ticket. More college basketball analysis after this timeout.
Winning comes without a guarantee. Focus, discipline, and extraordinary effort make winning more likely. Sometimes our greatest wins come from major setbacks. Coming back from a serious injury is a win that requires teamwork. At Berry Law, we're in it to win it.
If you have been seriously injured, call Berry Law.
Gaina Trucking is hiring CDL Class A and B drivers. Gaina Trucking guarantees a 40-hour work week year-round, and their strong team culture makes it not a job, but a career. Gaina Trucking offers health, vision, and dental insurance, 401k with company match, an employee assistance program, and other bonus programs. Build a better career today with great team culture at Gaina Trucking. Learn more and apply today at GainaTrucking.com.
Get all of your favorite restaurants delivered with VenueDelivered.com. One place for ordering delicious appetizers, refreshing salads, hot entrees, fresh sandwiches, and more. From Venue Restaurant and Lounge, Piedmont Bistro, and all Lincoln Good Sense Subs locations. Download our phone app to earn rewards on all of your carryout and delivery orders. Available on Apple and Android, just search for the Pillar Restaurants app. That's the Pillar Restaurants app. Download today.
Chances are you're a busy person. Chances are you'd rather not drive down to Beatrice for your favorite desserts. Chances are you'd really benefit from a Lincoln location for all of your fruitcake, liqueur cake, and breakfast bread needs. Insert Beatrice Bakery in downtown Lincoln, 1040 O Street, the new 93.7 The Ticket Studios. Just grab a cake out of the cooler, pay at the counter, and you're headed home with the delicious, fruity, nutty, decadent treat of your choice. Beatrice Bakery, online at BeatriceBakery.com or now in downtown Lincoln at 1040 O Street.
This is James Harrell with NP Dodge Real Estate. When I became a licensed realtor, I wanted a brokerage that would help me grow in my new career. I found that in Lincoln First Realty. When Lincoln First was acquired by NP Dodge, the training and support I received only got better. I love knowing I have the power of the NP Dodge brand behind me. I would recommend NP Dodge to new agents looking to jumpstart their real estate career and to current agents who want to take their business to the next level.
Expand your career with NP Dodge. Call Eric at 402-434-2222.
Sutter Heyman Jewelers' 118th anniversary sale is going on right now. This sale only comes around once a year, so don't miss your chance to save 20% or more on everything diamond. Bridal and engagement rings, bracelets, earrings, and all diamond jewelry, 20% off or more. Our lowest prices of the year, now through October 25th, only at Sutter Heyman's 118th anniversary sale. Lincoln and Grand Island or SutterHeyman.com.
It's phishing season. Bad actors are trolling your business emails, luring you and your employees to take the bait and steal your private information. Make sure your cybersecurity keeps your business from being the catch of the day. At Hamilton, cybersecurity is our business. We are experts at keeping your network and business information secure and off the hook. Contact Hamilton for a vulnerability assessment today. Hire your local experts. Hire Hamilton at hamiltonisbusiness.com.
On the block with Strick and Austin.
Yes, the rest of the roster has to elevate the quarterback, but the quarterback also has to elevate the rest of the roster. Haven't seen from Heinrich Harburg yet. I'm willing to give him the rest of the year. I'm willing to say that he can be the guy next year, but then you have to have realistic expectations in mind for Nebraska, and to me, that's 6 or 7 wins.
Weekdays from 2 to 4 on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com. Alexa, play 93.7 The Ticket.
Okay, playing 93.7 The Ticket.
Alexa, turn down the lights.
Dimming the lights.
Alexa, order a pizza. The big one. All the toppings.
Are you sure that's a good idea?
Alexa.
That's a lot of pizza for just one man.
Alexa, just do it. Stop judging me, just do it.
As you wish.
Thanks, Alexa. You're my best friend. Back to the Corner 3 on 93.7 The Ticket. Here is your host, Austin Oerman.
Back one final time here on the Corner 3. I'm Austin Oerman, joined from the great state of Wisconsin by Matt Hardesty. Matt, before we jump into our final college basketball topic, big shout out to your Bears doing the dang thing against the Raiders today. Anti-shout out to me for leaving 33 fantasy points from Deontay Foreman on my bench.
I actually did make the choice because I'm stupid enough to have Roschon Johnson as one of my starting running backs in fantasy. And that's just a lesson to never auto draft because then you're stuck trying stuff like that. But I just cut him and added Dante Foreman today. I did expect that, honestly, because Josh McDaniels is that bad of a coach that he would lose a game to Tyson Bagent. And it's like, he lost to Jeff Saturday last year in a hilarious fashion. I was like, he's absolutely going to lose this game after beating the Packers 2 weeks ago. So, not surprised by that. I also just saw on the break that Taylor Swift is once again at the Chiefs game, and Jackson Mahomes is right behind her. So that's the.
Where's Landon?
I'm sure Swifties are going to love that once they dig into Jackson Mahomes a little bit.
I cut you off before going to break. What were you going to throw in there?
Oh, yeah. So I just kind of noticed when I was down in the sickos region of KenPom there, our dearly beloved IUPUI is ranked 320th.
That's
after
a big jump.
Finishing the last 2 years. This is going to be Matt Crenshaw's third year at IUPUI, who I also dug into him on the break. And real quick, Matt Crenshaw, he is an alum of IUPUI. He actually started college at like 22 years old and played 4 years at IUPUI. He joined the Navy and then went into there. Now he's coaching back at his alma mater. And in his first 2 years, he won a total of 3 games in conference play and 8 total games. And last year they were 360th, the year before 358th. And this year they're a preseason 320th and projected to win 7 games in the Horizon League. Give me the under on that. But we love our Jags. That's a favorite Sickos team of all 3 of us, Landon included. So I thought I'd give that a mention because that's high.
Very well deserved. We will be tracking it throughout the year. I'm going to give you the final word here. Boogie Fland decommits, then recommits to Kentucky. Coach Cal got another one. You were bringing up an interesting point on Coach Cal and recruiting guards. Like, he basically doesn't miss.
Yeah, especially guards. When Cal goes after a point guard, especially now when you turn on the first few rounds of the NBA playoffs and half of the teams have guards from Kentucky, it's hard to ignore that. And kind of reading into the background of how 2 weeks ago Boogie Flan to Indiana was basically considered a lock at that point. And then out of nowhere, a few days ago, it was like, oh, actually, it's going to be Kentucky. And that's basically, when Cal finds a point guard he likes, he usually locks him up. The only one, especially at point guard, that I can remember that he really missed on that he really wanted was Cade Cunningham to Oklahoma State back in 2019.
Mm-hmm.
So
for obvious reasons.
Yeah, but I think that was a big moment. I mean, last year he landed DJ Wagner when many thought that Louisville was the team to beat for them after Kenny Payne hired his grandfather on staff, and there were all the ties there. But in the end, it really didn't. It wasn't really. By the end of it, it was pretty clear Kentucky was going to be the team. Once again, he goes out. Indiana has a lot of momentum. They get Liam McNeely from he was in a 2-horse race between Indiana and Kansas, so they got him, and then it's like, oh, Boogie Flan's next. All the talk online was that was Indiana's team guy to get. And even Kentucky Twitter wasn't really looking much at Boogie Flan. But again, when Cal likes a guy, he goes and locks him down. So this is usually his time to shine, where he gets like all of his big time recruits now. This is kind of the most surprising commitment in recent years, though. Since probably Kevin Knox flipped. He was like a heavy North Carolina lean and then just came out of nowhere and committed to Kentucky. But that was like late after the 2017 season. So it's a big get. And, Kentucky's not expected to have as good of a class next year. It'll probably still be like top 3, but there's not going to be a Cooper Flagg or, Trey Johnson's another one that's going to stay in, I think that's his name, that's going to stay in Texas. That's a top player. So it'll still be a good class, but this was a big get, so that it's just good to have you. If you're John Calipari, you can't have another Xavier Wheeler or Devin Askew as your point guard if you want to have any shot at success in March. So this was a big get.
Wheeler didn't exactly work out. Askew, nah, but credit Cal, he's got the touch with those guards, and you just had to bring up Cooper Flagg at the very end. Just as we have to get out, you had to bring him up. I get it. Countdown to Craziness seems like it went well. I follow more UConn accounts than I should. No Escalators is one on Twitter that I very much enjoy for Big East trolling. But Duke is the target right now, so I'm seeing more UConn propaganda than I would like. So I am still holding out hope for Cooper Flagg. Go back to your roots, young man. They've been your boyhood team your whole life. Go get them. He's Matt. I'm Austin. This has been the Corner 3 here on 93.7 The Ticket, theticketfm.com. Appreciate y'all hanging out with us for the last hour. On the other side, the Husker Extra Hour will lead off with Sam McEwen. Talk to Tom Chattel as well. It's been fun. Talk to you in a sec.
This is Lincoln's home for sports talk on the FM dial. Also online at theticketfm.com. On the internet. KNTK FM Firth, 93.7 The Ticket.
Is your backyard ready for fun with friends and family this fall? GE Landscape Supply has pavers and boulders, which are a great accent for any landscaping project. And you can find them at 6701 Cornhusker Highway. GE Landscape Supply sells to homeowners and contractors with a vast selection of landscaping and construction materials. And don't forget, they deliver anywhere, nearby or far away. Stop by at 6701 Cornhusker Highway from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday to Friday. Go to gelandscapesupply.com for more info or call 402-467-1627.
Houses? They're expensive.